This InfoSphere Guardium Tech Talk, Reporting 101. This is our first Tech Talk of the year 2014. I hope everybody had a good break. And I'm very excited to have Dario Kramer on. He's been with Guardium since almost the beginning. He knows the system probably better than almost anyone. And so we're really pleased to have him here to talk about Reporting 101, which is a fundamental skill that people need to understand when working with the system. Just again, a reminder, this is being recorded, so if you object, you must hang up and leave the webcast now. As I mentioned earlier, the slides are already posted on the Guardium Community Tech Talk. Reminder, our next Tech Talk, the registration is now open. Dario will be taking this talk we have here to the next level, so we'll be learning about some more advanced capabilities. So he'll be talking about auto process and scheduling, some of the advanced reporting options, and using the data mart, which is a fairly new capability that can help improve performance. Any other topics that you would like Dario to cover, please make sure we're aware of those, and we'll be sure that he can do that for you. Okay, at this point, I am going to turn control over to Dario Kramer. Dario, feel free to introduce yourself further, and you now have control.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy. Good morning or good afternoon, good evening to everybody. My name is Dario Kramer. I did in several positions, and I'm going to talk today about reporting. I will start with a very brief description of how we collect or what data we collect, which is the data that we want to look when we use the reporting. So we're looking at the reporting as a way to gain visibility on the data that is collected, or as a way to answer questions about what happened in the database the databases that are being monitoring. So we're going to go through all the reporting domains, what is an entity, attributes, how to create a report, drill downs that we use to gain more information or more details on the information about the information that we are seeing, decisions that we make when we are creating a new report, and a few functions that we can invoke from the screen that we use to view reports, and a very brief description of how we use audit processes and the advantages and disadvantages of using an audit process to see the report. So I'm going to start. I'm going to be stopping from time to time for questions. Prefer that rather than leaving to all the questions to the end. Okay, so the database activity flow. We are monitoring most part relation databases, and we look at the information that comes from the database and goes back to the client. So information or a session always starts from a client, which we define as the from and to, where the client information starts, which is going to be a request. We open a session, we send a request, we close the session, and on the other side, the server will return some data retrieve exceptions, login failures, for example, etc. will all return from the server back to the client. We monitor both sides depending on how the policies are defined, and we save both sides of the information. We start from the client, what we call the client server, which is the from and to, who is accessing the database, which database, and the session, and each one of the requests. Before we move a little further with this. This one important fact that we have to take into account when we are trying to gain visibility and see what happens. We define policies, access policies are installed on each one of the servers that are monitoring our databases, and this policy impacts the data that we actually collect, and the impact comes in several ways. I'm going to give some examples, but we have to take this into account every time we try to define a report, making sure that we are actually collecting the information that we want to see. For example, actions that are related to ignore will cause the system not to collect specific data. Actions that are related to collecting full details will cause more detailed information for that request or for a series of requests to be collected. So the impact of the policy definition is extensive, and we have to take this into account. And I don't want to go deep into how the policy is defined. I mean, this is subject for a different tech talk, but just to mention that what actually is collected is impacted there. Okay, so as we said, information goes from a client to a database server. So first of all, we do divide the information that we collect, information that is in the system, into domains of information. These are groups of tables or group of entities and pieces of data that make sense to hold together, that we want to share within the same report. Most typical one will be exactly the domain we were talking about, which is the access domain. Is the one that holds the requests that are being issued from a client to a database server. This access domain will contain entities. We start from the client server, which is the from to. That will define which database has been accessed and from where. That will include client IP, server IP, host names, database user that was used to connect to the data, source program, etc. And every time we see one new, we write it down. But not every time we open a session. So when a user connects to the database, a new session is open. A new session is open, and this session is from a specific client to a specific server, and this will be using the client server data that is already in the system, unless it's a new one, in which case we are going to write a new one that will be reused. Later. The same happens on every request we send. We send a select statement as part of a session, and we are creating a construct that includes sentences, objects, fields. I will go into a little bit of detail soon about that, but also is saved with the level of detail, will not include values, and is reused every time a similar request is seen by the system. And then we have the full SQL, which is collected on demand. We have to define it on the policy, and it's the one that will contain the full SQL statement as it was issued to the database with the values. And there are other entities. This is the very high-level view of the access domain. But as we say, every domain is a way to organize the information in groups that make sense or have relations. So another examples of data domains will be the exceptions domain. If we send a request and the request returns an error for whatever reason, can be a syntax, can be privileges, or any other error that the database return, we have an exceptions domain that also knows where and from where the request has been issued, and all the details about the exception. If we set up a policy that generates violations, every policy violation information is also logged, and it goes to the policy violations domain. And these are three examples of domains that we can use to report information. There are a number of them more. Word about a construct. What happens when we see an SQL statement? So let's start from a very simple example. Select column 1, column 2, C1, C2 from my table. This is the select statement that we see here. So there is only one sentence there. It's a select. And the sentence has a verb or a command that is the select. There is one object, and which is my table. And the object, by the way, can be a table, can be a view, can be a procedure, can be a lot of things. It mostly depends on the verb. And it has two fields, C1 and C2, that in this case we know that they belong to my table. So we build a construct on an hierarchy of these elements. So if you look at the right, we have a construct that may have a number of sentences. Each sentence may have a number of objects, and each object may have a number of fields. Take a look at the second example that makes it a little bit more complex, or two sentences is still not really complicated one. So we update table 1. We set column 1 equals 5. Where column 2 in and some inner select statement that is used on a condition on column 2 on the first table. So the select inside is a second sentence, while the update is the first sentence. So we have two sentences under the same construct. The first one has a verb or command update. The second one command is select. The first one has one object, which is table 1, and two fields, column 1 and column 2. And note that column 1 is the field that we are setting a value. Column 2 actually is used on the condition. But both are fields that are used on that sentence, the sentence that belongs to that constraint. On the second sentence is the update, and is on table 2, and has one field, which is column 2. In this case, the sentence 1 has depth 0, and we have only one sentence of depth 1. But you can understand from here that if I have, for example, a create procedure with a very sophisticated or complex code and hundreds of lines, so we have a large number of sentences and objects and fields with depth on the same construct. One more word. The fields are linked to a specific object in all cases that this can be actually determined. An example of can do a select column 1 from a join of two tables. I will have one sentence. There would be two objects, and if I did not write it explicitly, or the request does not contain explicitly from which of the two tables the column has been selected, we know that we have an object column 1 on the select statement on that specific sentence. We don't know if it belongs to table 1 or table 2 but we still collect this data. Internally, every domain contains entities. These entities are, again, groups of information. They can represent a table on the internal Guardium database. As I said before, there are examples of domains will be the access domain, the exception, policy violations. There are others. The access domain has entities that are the client server, the from, out, and to, who access which database, the session every time we connect, and the access period, which is the actual request at the construct level that were issued within a certain session, and within a period of time. We divide it on periods of 1 hour. The client server, as well as all the rest of the entities, has a number of attributes. Examples of the attributes on the client server will be the server type, client IP, server IP, the database user, source program, host names, etc. We include a detailed list on the documentation of each one of the entities and attributes. I will not go on detail on all of them for the time reason. The same logical structure when we are going to define a query is the logical structure that we keep. We go to create a query or report on the access domain. We get a list of entities as they are shown in the in the entities list, and every time we open one of them, we get the list of all the attributes that are available on that on that entity, and that will give the opportunity while we are creating a query or a report to choose what entities we want to see in the layout of the report, which ones we want to use for conditions, etc. Okay, so the first step in order to create a query is to find the query builder. So first of all, there is a notion of a query and a report, and I, as well as a lot of people, are using this almost indistinctively. And in the system, we are talking about the query. That's most of the session today is on the query. The report is used mostly to do some changes in the way we look at the data. We will assume regular tabular reports, so I'm not going to I'm not going into this level of detail in this in this session. So as the Guardium has a few predefined roles for the users, and of course you can create your own roles and set up the structure of the panels in the system for each one of the roles, and will be the default for each user. I'm going to show two examples which are for the predefined administrator role, the admin role, which is the one that we are seeing in the slide now, and for the regular user. So for the administration role, we have a tab named Tools. It has two tabs. One is for configuration and control, and one is for report building. And if we click on the report building tab, we're going to have a long list of tracking. Access tracking, the one that I just clicked, aggregation tracking, alert application tracking, etc., etc. There is a long number, and we are going to use the access tracking for the examples in this presentation. And this is the query builder that will allow us to write queries on the access domain. That is in my opinion, the most important, the one that contains all the requests that went to the database. So to start, we click the new, and we choose what domain. We click to create a new query, and we go from there. Second case will be a regular user that has a monitor and audit tab that has a few tabs underneath. The one is the build reports, and again, this is the track data access. There are the other builders for other domains, like the exceptions, the policy violations, sent alerts, raw connections that appear in the appear in the screen. The number is a little lower than the one that appears for the administrator, but all this is customizable and can add to every user any other report builder or query builder that is required. So I'm going to start on a more specific example. So maybe this is a good.
There is a question about whether you can get information from more than one domain. How do I get information from more than one domain into a report?
Okay, the short answer is that we don't. If we want to, if you need to combine two different domains, the way to do that is by creating a custom domain that includes the pieces of information or the entities that needs to be combined. So, for example, if you want to combine exceptions with access, which is something that makes sense. So first of all, what we did is we included a lot of the access information also on the exception. If the entity belongs to a specific domain, doesn't mean that it belongs only to that domain. Entities are shared. The from and to, for example, of the session these are entities or information that is shared between the access domain and the exception. So in some cases, we already provide this combination. But if there is a combination that is not provided, as long as the entities can be linked together, there is functionality in the system that I didn't plan to cover today, which is custom domains that enables users to create their own domains, and those domains can contain custom data that is uploaded by the users to the system, or entities that are already defined in the system, including all the access entities and all the exception entities, and can be combined. We also provide the functionality to clone the domain. For example, if the data that needs to be combined contains a lot of entities on the access domain, you can clone the access domain, so everything is already ready. The entities are linked together, and we can add on top of it to this clone domain, which is custom domain, information from other domains or custom table as is needed. And I will try to add some of it to a future tech talk, or maybe something for the advanced.
That's a good topic for advanced. Thanks, Dario.
Yes.
I think that's the only